Hello again. Snandle in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Now we are ready to read chapter 6, and it is called Boots Escape. Uh-oh. I can't believe you followed me all the way, Boots, Suzanne told him again as she cuddled him in between putting her shoes on for school the next day. Everybody wants to know about you. Even people in the grade above came to ask who you were. They saw me carrying you up to the office on their way back from PE. She sighed and placed him down on the stairs so she could put on her other shoe. But Miss Wilson made Dad promise he wouldn't let it happen again. He said Miss Wilson was really scary. You're going to hate being shut up for the whole day. She petted his head, looking at him worriedly. I suppose in a few days you'll stop wanting to follow me, but I sort of wish you wouldn't. I love that you're so clever. Boots clambered up a couple of steps. It took a little while, as his legs were still pretty short, so that he could rub his chin on Suzanne's hair while she tied her shoe. He wasn't sure what she was saying, but it was definitely nice. She was fussing over him, and he liked to be fussed over. And there's the picture. Jackson came stomping down the hallway, and Suzanne turned around and dropped a kiss on top of Boots' little furry head. I've got to go. Be good, Boots. Boots sat on the steps and stared at her angrily as she slipped quickly out the front door, closing it closed behind her. She had done it again. How many times did he have to follow them before she decided it would be just easier to take him with them? He jumped down the stairs in 2 huge leaps and ran for the cat flap. But it was locked. He scratched at it furiously until Dad came and picked him up. Sorry, Boots. Not happening. Boots wriggled out of his arms and stalked across the kitchen. He was going to follow Suzanne. Somehow. He would have to get out of the house a different way. Boots prowled thoughtfully through the different rooms, sniffing hopefully at the front door to see if it might open. He could smell outside, but the door was firmly shut, and so were all the windows. But when Suzanne had taken him upstairs to play the day before, her window had been open. Boots sat at the bottom of the stairs and gazed upward doubtfully. The stairs were very big, but he could do it, if he was careful and slow. Determined, he began to scramble and haul himself up, stopping every once in a while to rest, while at last he heaved himself onto the landing. His legs felt wobbly, and he made himself keep going into Suzanne's room, where the door was just open a crack. As soon as he pushed his way around the door, his ears pricked forward excitedly. The window was open, just as he had remembered it. Forgetting how tired his legs were, Boots sprang up onto the bed, sniffing delightedly at the fresh air blowing in. The windowsill was too far above the bed for him to reach it, though. His whiskers drooped a little. How was he going to get up there? He padded up and down the bed and stared at Suzanne's pile of cuddly toys. She liked to tease him with them, walking them up and down the bed for him to pounce on. But why shouldn't he climb up them instead? He put out a cautious paw, testing the back of a fluffy toy cat. It squashed down a little, but it was still a step up, and then onto the back of a huge teddy bear, and the stuffed leopard, and the windowsill. There he is, climbing up. Boots pulled himself up, panting happily as he felt the cool breeze on his whiskers. Now he just had to get down again on the outside. No kitten today? Sarah asked Suzanne a little sadly. Suzanne shook her head. Miss Wilson made my dad promise he'd keep him in. Poor Boots, he's going to be so upset. He's the cleverest cat I've ever seen, Sarah told her admiringly. Imagine coming all that way, and he'd never even been to the school before. I don't know how he figured out where to go. Suzanne smiled. It's amazing, isn't it? I think he must have heard us all in the playground. You should stop by the store and buy him a treat on the way home, Izzy suggested. I've got some money if you don't have any on you. Suzanne nodded. It's okay, thanks. I've got some. That's a really good idea. She grinned at Lizzie. You can help me choose. It was so nice having a good friend to hang out with. It felt like being back at her old school. Izzy's mom had been fine with Izzy walking with Suzanne. Izzy usually walked home too. She had an older sister in Jackson's class. He might even start talking to us if we bring him cat treats. Boots scrambled frantically at the branches of a bush. It had looked so solid and easy to climb, but it turned out to be much harder to get down than it was to come up. It was also more wobbly, and he didn't like that. The first part had been easy, just a little jump to the sloping part of the roof, then across the tiles. It was the drop down from the roof that was the problem. His claws were slipping. Boots gave up trying to hang on and leaped out as far away from the wall as he could, hoping that he remembered how to land. He hit the ground with a jolt, but he was there, in the front yard, right by the gate and the road. Boots darted a glance behind him. Then he scrambled under the gate and set off to find Suzanne trotting along jauntily. He knew the way now. He didn't have to sniff and search and worry. He was halfway down the field when it started to rain. A very large drop hit him on the nose, making him shrink back. It was soon followed by a lot of others, and in 2 seconds his fur was plastered flat over his thin ribs. He hid in the hedge, his ears laid back. He would wait for it to stop, Boots decided, gazing out disgustedly. He certainly didn't want to go anywhere in that. But it went on, and he needed to find Suzanne. He put his nose out cautiously and shivered as he felt the drops on his whiskers. It was horrible. But he couldn't stay here all day. At last he slunk out from under the bush, plodding through the wet, muddy ruts, and hoping that Suzanne would have something warm and dry to wrap around him when he got to the school. He scurried down the pavement, through the puddles, so miserable that he didn't even bother to dart under the bush to avoid the car going past. The driver of the car didn't see the soaked little kitten, and even if he had, he probably wouldn't have been able to avoid the huge puddle that splashed up over Boots like a wave. There was so much water that he staggered back, letting out a cold, sad meow. Poor guy. Then he flat out ran for the school, racing across the playground toward that warm open door. But it was closed. It had been wet at recess, and no one had wanted the rain blowing in. All the doors were closed, every single one, as the soaked orange-striped kitten found when he ran frantically all the way around the building. Remembering the window he had climbed out of at home, Boots looked up to see if there were any he could get through. There was a bench up against the wall, with a window right above it, and he jumped for the seat, scrambling desperately until he could heave himself up. Then it was a little hop onto the arm of the bench, and then again onto the window sill. But the window was shut, and everyone was gathered together at the other end of the classroom, looking at something and talking excitedly. They didn't hear him scratching hopefully at the window, and at last he jumped down. Poor Boots. Boots sat under the bench and meowed miserably, calling for someone to come and let him in. He didn't care if they took him back home again, as long as he was out of the rain. He would stay at home and never try to follow anyone, if only he were dry. No one came. No one heard him over the hammering and splashing of the rain, and the water from the bench was dripping all over him. Boots crawled out, looking around for another place to hide. There were trees over on the edge of the path to the field. Maybe it would be drier there. He ran through the wet grass, shivering as the stems rubbed along his soaked fur and shaking water drops off his whiskers. He was so cold. Sitting still under the bench had made him shiver, and now he couldn't stop. Then something made his ears flick up a little. There was another building, just a little one, a shed, and he could see that the door was open. Boots made one last effort, forcing his shaky paws to race to the shed and struggle over the step and into the dusty dryness. He was so relieved to be out of the rain that he hardly noticed the sports equipment piled up all over the place, just the heap of old tattered mats that he could curl up on and take a nap. It was while Boots was fast asleep that the custodian remembered that he hadn't locked up the shed when he had taken out the extra chairs and came grumpily back through the rain with his keys. Uh-oh. All right, well, next time we'll read Chapter 7, and that will get us one chapter closer to finding out what happens to Boots. All right. Good night. See you next time.